Have you ever felt like there's an invisible force blocking your financial breakthrough, no matter how hard you work or how much you pray? What if I told you that right now, in this very moment, you're not here by coincidence? You're here because heaven has orchestrated a divine appointment with your financial destiny. Think about it for a second. Out of millions of videos you could be watching, out of countless distractions competing for your attention, something deeper than logic guided you. Here, your spirit recognized a frequency, a signal that this moment carries something you've been searching for, perhaps without even realizing it. This isn't just another motivational message or another prayer you'll forget tomorrow. This is a prophetic summons, and the timing couldn't be more critical. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Now let me ask you something personal. Has this ever happened to you? You've been waiting for a financial shift, believing for abundance, declaring prosperity, yet somehow the breakthrough keeps getting delayed. Doors that should open remain closed. Opportunities that seem perfect slip through your fingers. Resources that should flow toward you seem to move in every direction except yours. You begin to wonder if there's something you're missing, some key you haven't turned, some spiritual principle you haven't understood. Here's what most people don't realize, and stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might surprise you. There are moments in the spiritual realm that operate outside of normal time. The ancient Greeks had a word for it: kairos. While chronos represents chronological time, the tick-tock of seconds and minutes, kairos represents divine timing, those pregnant moments when heaven breaks into earthly circumstances and rearranges everything in an instant. You are standing at the threshold of such a moment right now. The resistance you felt, the delays that have frustrated you, the closed doors that confused you, they weren't accidents or punishments. They were holding patterns, divine pauses, because heaven was waiting for this precise window to open. Think of it like a combination lock. Every number has to align perfectly before the lock opens. Your preparation, your character development, your spiritual positioning, the people who needed to be in place, the circumstances that needed to shift. All of these have been moving like tumblers in a cosmic lock, and right now they're clicking into alignment. God has been preparing something for you that the enemy has desperately tried to resist, to delay, to distort. But prophetic timing doesn't bow to opposition. When heaven decides to release what's been assigned to your name since before the foundations of the world, no force in hell can keep it locked. Right now, as you're reading these words or listening to my voice, something profound is happening in the unseen realm. The atmosphere around you is shifting, recalibrating, adjusting to a higher frequency. You might not feel it with your physical senses, but your spirit knows. There's a reason you can't look away, a reason something inside you is saying, pay attention. That's because angelic forces are already moving on your behalf, creating pathways where there were walls, opening channels where there was blockage. Think about how a radio works. You can be surrounded by dozens of stations broadcasting simultaneously, but you only hear the one you're tuned into. Your financial breakthrough has been broadcasting its signal this entire time, but perhaps your internal receiver was tuned to the wrong frequency, the frequency of doubt, the channel of past disappointments, the static of fear. What's happening in this moment is a divine recalibration of your internal receiver. Every distraction that normally pulls your focus away is being silenced. Every burden you've been carrying is being lifted from your consciousness. Every whisper of doubt that tells you this won't work for you or you've tried before and failed is losing its voice. This is where transformation begins, not in the external circumstances first, but in the internal alignment. Your mind and your spirit have been operating on different frequencies, pulling in opposite directions. Your spirit believes in abundance, but your mind keeps replaying memories of lack. Your spirit sees possibilities, but your mind sees obstacles. This internal conflict creates a spiritual static that blocks the flow of provision. But when your mind comes into alignment with your spirit, when your thoughts sync with your divine identity, when your mental patterns harmonize with heaven's intentions for you, something powerful happens. The atmosphere around you begins to respond differently. Subscribe to this channel so you stay connected to content designed to keep you aligned with abundance and breakthrough. You become like a magnet with its polarity aligned, suddenly attracting what previously seemed to repel you. Opportunities that couldn't find you before now locate you effortlessly. People who hold keys to your next level start remembering your name. Resources that were frozen begin to flow. This isn't magic or wishful thinking. This is the hidden truth about how the spiritual realm operates. Alignment creates momentum, and momentum creates breakthrough. The decisions you make from this point forward will either maintain this alignment or disrupt it, which is why understanding what's happening right now is so critical to your financial journey. Your atmosphere is being governed in this moment. That means the spiritual climate around your life, your finances, your opportunities is being reset to a new standard. Now, I want to go even deeper into this because what I'm about to reveal about the laws that govern this alignment will completely change how you approach financial increase. Write in the comments, "I receive this alignment," because your agreement in this moment activates what heaven is releasing. Here's something most people miss when they're pursuing financial breakthrough. There's a profound difference between wishing for something and activating it in the spiritual realm. You can hope for abundance every day of your life, but hope without activation remains dormant, like a seed that never breaks through the soil. What I'm about to share with you operates on a principle that's been hidden in plain sight throughout history. When you decree something 3 times with genuine faith, you're not just repeating words. You're creating a prophetic activation point, a spiritual tripwire that triggers movement in the unseen realm. Think about how many times Scripture emphasizes 3-fold patterns. Peter was asked 3 times if he loved Jesus. Jesus prayed 3 times in the garden. The earth is described with 3 levels: earth, heaven, and the heaven of heavens. There's a divine architecture to the number 3 that represents complete establishment, full manifestation, absolute confirmation. When you speak a decree once, you plant it. When you speak it twice, you water it. When you speak it the 3rd time, you harvest it. This isn't superstition. This is understanding how spiritual laws operate, laws that were set in motion long before you or I existed. Your financial story up until this moment has been written by a combination of your past decisions, your inherited mindsets, your environment, and the limitations you accepted as truth. But here's the revelation that changes everything. Your story isn't set in stone. It's written in ink, not carved in granite, which means it can be rewritten. The moment you come into agreement with what heaven has already registered under your name, the narrative shifts. What you've been experiencing isn't the final chapter. It's been the setup for a plot twist that will redefine your entire financial journey. From this exact moment forward, something irreversible is being set in motion. You're not going back to business as usual. You're not returning to the same cycles of limitation. The declaration you make carries weight in dimensions you cannot see with natural eyes, but whose impact you will absolutely feel in tangible ways. Your circumstances might look the same tomorrow morning, but the spiritual infrastructure supporting your finances is being completely reconstructed. It's like renovation happening behind the walls of a house. You don't see the new wiring, the new plumbing, the reinforced foundation, but everything is being upgraded to handle a higher capacity. This transformation isn't just about money appearing in your bank account, though that will happen. It's about a fundamental shift in how provision flows to you, how opportunities recognize you, how favor operates around you. The old patterns that kept you trapped are losing their grip. Now let me show you exactly what happens when angelic forces are deployed specifically for your financial elevation, because understanding this will help you recognize the breakthrough when it arrives. If you're feeling something shift inside you right now, type in the comments, "My story is changing." Most people make a critical mistake when they're believing for financial breakthrough. They keep staring at their bank account, waiting for the numbers to change, completely unaware that the real action is happening somewhere they can't see. The unseen realm is where every breakthrough originates. It's the backstage area where decisions are made, forces are deployed, and outcomes are determined before they ever appear on the stage of your physical reality. When something shifts in the spiritual dimension, the natural world has no choice but to follow suit. It's not a matter of if it will manifest. It's a matter of when you'll recognize it arriving. Think about a tree. Long before you see fruit hanging from its branches, there's an entire hidden process happening beneath the surface. Roots are drawing nutrients, cells are multiplying, energy is being converted, all completely invisible to the casual observer. By the time you see the fruit, the real work has already been done. That's exactly what's happening with your financial breakthrough right now. Heaven isn't waiting around for you to figure everything out. Heaven isn't passive, standing back with folded arms until you get your life perfectly in order. There's a stirring in the spiritual realm at this very moment, a movement that your spirit can sense even if your mind hasn't caught up yet. If something shifted inside you while watching this, show me by hitting the like button. It helps this reach others who need it right now. This isn't some distant future possibility. You are stepping into a zone right now, not tomorrow, not next month, where the flow of provision that's been blocked, resisted, delayed by spiritual interference is being activated. Have you ever wondered why some opportunities seemed to evaporate just before they materialized? Why certain doors appeared open but then slammed shut at the last second? Why resources that should have reached you got rerouted somewhere else? That wasn't bad luck or poor timing. That was spiritual interference, invisible forces working to disrupt what heaven intended for you. But here's where the journey takes a powerful turn. When heaven decides to move, no opposing force can maintain its position. What was locked is being unlocked. What was held back is being released. What was distorted is being straightened. The resistance that created those frustrating delays is losing its jurisdiction over your finances. You're not fighting to make something happen anymore. You're positioning yourself to receive what's already been set in motion. The impact of what's happening right now in the unseen realm will become undeniable in your visible circumstances, but it requires you to understand how these spiritual currents operate. Now let me reveal the specific laws that govern how this provision flows, because once you understand these principles, you'll never approach your finances the same way again. If you're sensing this movement in your spirit, write in the comments, "I feel the shift." There are gifts inside you that have been sleeping, potential that's been sitting dormant, capacities that were placed in you before you were born, but never fully awakened. Maybe you felt it, that sense that there's more you're supposed to be doing, more you're capable of achieving, more that should be flowing through your life. That feeling isn't your imagination, it's your spirit recognizing something that's been waiting for the right moment to ignite. And this is that moment. What was dormant is being set ablaze right now. What was slowed down by circumstances, by setbacks, by years of struggle is being accelerated. What was sealed shut, locked away, kept just out of reach is being opened. Every divine resource that has your name attached to it in the spiritual realm is responding to this moment. Think about it like this. Imagine there are warehouses in heaven filled with provision, opportunities, connections, ideas, strategies, all tagged with your name. They've been there the entire time, allocated to your destiny, but they couldn't be released until certain conditions were met, until you arrived at this precise juncture in your journey. Those warehouses are being opened. The inventory assigned to you is being dispatched. This isn't symbolic language. This is how the spiritual economy actually operates. Angels of increase are being deployed right now with specific assignments related to your financial elevation. These aren't abstract concepts or religious metaphors. These are actual spiritual forces that influence natural circumstances. They're entering conversations you're not part of, speaking your name in rooms you've never been in, orchestrating connections between you and people who hold keys to your next level. Systems that were out of alignment with your destiny, banking systems, employment systems, business systems, investment systems, are being repositioned. People who should have been in your network, but somehow never connected with you, are being realigned to your path. What's been stuck for months, maybe years, is gaining momentum through supernatural intervention. That opportunity that seemed dead is reviving. That door that appeared permanently closed is creaking open. That resource that dried up is beginning to flow again. But here's the hidden truth most people miss. This intervention isn't random, and it's not happening in isolation. There's a divine orchestration taking place where multiple pieces are moving simultaneously, pieces you can't see yet, all converging toward a breakthrough moment that will shift everything. Now, let me show you how new economic pathways are being formed specifically for you. Pathways that don't depend on conventional routes or traditional limitations. If you're ready to see these pathways open, write in the comments. New doors are opening. The moment you come into genuine agreement with what I'm speaking over your life, something extraordinary begins happening in the invisible realm. Heaven starts constructing new economic pathways specifically designed for you. These aren't the traditional routes everyone else is taking. The climb up the corporate ladder, the hustle for the next promotion, the networking events where you hand out business cards, hoping someone important notices you. Those pathways have their place, but what's being formed around you right now operates on an entirely different system. These pathways are based on divine intention, on what heaven decided your financial purpose would be before you took your first breath. You might have been trying to force your way through doors that were never meant for you, exhausting yourself on routes that lead nowhere, wondering why your efforts produce such minimal results. That's because you were navigating based on what you could see, what seemed logical, what society told you was the path to prosperity. But God's intention for your financial life isn't limited by conventional wisdom or standard procedures. New channels are being carved out that connect you directly to resources, opportunities, and people aligned with your specific assignment. These pathways bypass the usual gatekeepers. They circumvent the typical obstacles. They operate on favor, on divine timing, on supernatural coordination. Here's what makes this moment so pivotal. The flow of provision that's been blocked or trickling at best is now activating. It's like someone just turned a valve that's been rusted shut for years. The movement of increase is accelerating, picking up speed, building momentum with each passing moment. But the most critical transformation happening right now is this. The cycle of lack is breaking off your life. Not next year, not when you finally get everything together. Right now, through prophetic declarations spoken over your circumstances, generational patterns of poverty, mental loops that keep you expecting shortage, emotional habits that prepare you for disappointment rather than abundance. All of it is being severed from your destiny. This cycle has probably been running in the background of your life so long you stopped noticing it, like white noise you eventually tune out. It convinced you that struggle was your portion, that barely making it was your normal, that financial stress was just part of your story. But cycles can be broken, and this one is losing its power over you in this exact moment. What's taking its place? It's a completely different pattern, one built on increase rather than decrease, overflow rather than shortage, divine supply rather than human limitation. Now let me take you deeper into understanding your true identity in the realm of financial abundance, because who you believe you are determines what you can receive. Type in the comments, "The cycle is broken." Here's something that will completely shift how you view your current circumstances. Heaven doesn't wait for everything in your life to line up perfectly before it starts moving. Heaven moves first. While you're still trying to figure out your next step, Heaven has already deployed forces 10 steps ahead of you. While you're wondering if this is really your moment, angelic assignments have already been activated with your name written all over them. This isn't about you working harder or being more strategic or finally getting your act together. This is about recognizing that the divine realm operates with a level of precision and authority that surpasses anything you could orchestrate on your own. Right now, in this very moment, angels assigned specifically to your financial destiny are being deployed. They're not waiting for permission. They're not wondering if you deserve it. They're executing heavenly instructions with military-grade precision. Every angel of breakthrough, increase, favor, and economic alignment is moving into position around your life. Think about what that actually means in practical terms. There are conversations happening right now in boardrooms, offices, homes, conferences, where your name is being mentioned and you don't even know it. Decisions are being made that will directly impact your financial future, and you're not in the room, but heaven's representatives are. Someone is thinking about you for an opportunity you never applied for. A door is about to open that you didn't even know existed. A connection is about to be made that will shift the entire trajectory of your income. These aren't coincidences or lucky breaks. This is divine orchestration operating behind the scenes of your visible reality. The angels assigned to you don't sleep. They don't get distracted. They don't forget their mission. They're advocating for you in spaces you cannot access, influencing outcomes you cannot control, arranging circumstances you never saw coming. This is why trying to force breakthrough through sheer human effort is so exhausting. You're working against the flow instead of positioning yourself to receive what's already in motion. The transformation you're experiencing isn't about you becoming someone different. It's about you recognizing who you've always been in heaven's eyes. Someone worthy of divine intervention, someone whose financial story matters in the eternal scheme of things. Now let me reveal the acceleration that's about to take place in your timeline, because what took years in past seasons is about to happen in a fraction of that time. If you're ready for this acceleration, write in the comments, "Heaven is moving for me." Every delay you've experienced up until now hasn't been random. Those frustrating pauses, those agonizing waiting periods, those moments when it felt like everyone else was advancing while you stood still. There was spiritual resistance operating behind those delays. Invisible barriers you couldn't identify were slowing your advancement, creating friction between you and your breakthrough. But here's what's shifting in this moment. Those barriers are being dismantled piece by piece. The spiritual resistance that stood like an impenetrable wall between you and financial increase is losing its jurisdiction. It's losing its legal right to block what belongs to you. Think about how relieved you feel when traffic suddenly clears after being stuck for miles. That sense of freedom, of movement restored, of finally making progress. That's what's happening in the spiritual dimension of your finances right now. The roadblocks are being removed. The detours that kept sending you in circles are being straightened. What's taking their place is acceleration, and I mean that in the most literal sense. You're entering a season where the normal timeframes no longer apply to your journey. What would have taken you years in a previous season will take months. What would have taken months will compress into weeks. What should have taken weeks will happen in days. This isn't exaggeration or hype. This is prophetic. Acceleration, where heaven fast-forwards your timeline because you've finally aligned with divine timing. Momentum is about to become your greatest ally instead of your frustration. You know how hard it is to start pushing a heavy object from a standstill. That initial push requires enormous effort, but once that object is moving, once momentum builds, it becomes easier to keep it going, and it picks up speed naturally. That's where you are right now. The hardest part, getting things moving from zero, is behind you. What's ahead is momentum building upon momentum, acceleration compounding upon acceleration. Decisions that normally would take months to materialize will suddenly come together in weeks. Opportunities that typically require years of groundwork will present themselves in months. Income streams that should take extended periods to develop will activate in compressed timeframes. This is what happens when heaven's hand presses fast forward on your financial story. But this acceleration doesn't happen in a vacuum, and it's not sustainable without understanding the spiritual architecture that supports it. Now let me reveal the laws that govern this divine flow, because when you operate in harmony with these principles, the acceleration doesn't just happen once. It becomes your new normal. If you're feeling this momentum building, write in the comments, "My season is accelerating." What I'm sharing with you isn't motivational fluff or feel-good inspiration that evaporates the moment you close this video. This is spiritual architecture, the actual framework, the blueprint, the infrastructure upon which financial breakthrough is built. Nothing in the kingdom operates randomly. Increase doesn't just fall out of the sky by accident. Breakthrough isn't a lottery where some people get lucky and others don't. Financial elevation flows through established laws, divine order, principles that were set in motion before time began. When you understand these laws, you stop gambling with your finances and start governing them. Here's a revelation that will transform how you approach abundance. What you expect, God empowers. Not what you hope for in a vague, wishful way, but what you genuinely expect with conviction. Your expectations aren't passive thoughts floating around in your mind. They're creative forces that generate spiritual momentum. When you expect lack, you unconsciously create agreements with scarcity. When you expect struggle, you magnetically attract obstacles. But when you expect abundance, when you genuinely anticipate provision, when you walk through your day with the settled assurance that increase is your portion, heaven responds to that expectation by empowering it with divine resources. What you align with, God releases. This is critical to understand. You can pray for wealth while aligning your thoughts, words, and actions with poverty. You can ask for breakthrough while your internal dialogue remains aligned with limitation. Heaven doesn't respond to your wishful thinking. It responds to your alignment. When your mind, your mouth, your emotions, and your daily decisions come into alignment with abundance, the floodgates open because now there's a clear channel for provision to flow through. What you honor, God multiplies. Show me what you celebrate, what you value, what you speak about with respect and gratitude, and I'll show you what will increase in your life. This isn't about positive thinking or pretending. Problems don't exist. This is about understanding that your expectations function like spiritual magnets, drawing toward you circumstances that match your dominant internal frequency. The decisions you make from this point forward will either strengthen this alignment or disrupt it. Every thought you entertain, every word you speak, every belief you hold about your financial future is either building momentum or creating resistance. Now let me show you how your identity in the kingdom determines what level of abundance you can actually access and sustain. If this is making sense to you, write in the comments, "I align with abundance." Here's the hidden truth that separates those who experience temporary windfalls from those who walk in sustained abundance. Understanding these spiritual laws isn't optional if you want lasting transformation. You can stumble into a blessing by accident, receive an unexpected check, get a surprise opportunity, but without understanding the architecture behind it, you'll watch it slip through your fingers. The kingdom operates on order, not chaos. Divine order means there's a predictable, reliable system at work. And when you learn how that system functions, you stop being a victim of circumstances and become a steward of supernatural provision. Most people approach their finances with a consumer mindset, always asking, "What can I get?" But the kingdom operates on a steward mindset, which asks, "What have I been entrusted to manage and multiply?" This shift in perspective changes everything. A consumer lives at the mercy of supply and demand. A steward partners with heaven's supply chain. A consumer waits for opportunities to come to them. A steward recognizes they carry opportunities within them. Your identity determines your capacity. If you see yourself as barely surviving, constantly behind, perpetually struggling, then no matter how much money flows toward you, it will never feel like enough, because your internal identity can't hold what your external circumstances provide. But when you recognize who you actually are in the kingdom, an ambassador, a representative, someone entrusted with resources not just for personal comfort, but for kingdom impact, everything shifts. The enemy hasn't been fighting your bank account. He's been fighting your awakening to this identity, because he knows that once you truly grasp who you are, there's no stopping the flow of provision. You stop begging and start legislating. You stop hoping and start declaring. You stop wondering if it's possible and start expecting it as your portion. This is why some people can have very little yet live in abundance, while others have much but constantly experience lack. It's not about the amount. It's about the identity carrying it. Your breakthrough isn't just waiting for the right circumstances. It's waiting for you to step fully into the identity that can sustain it. Now let me show you how divine flow replaces human striving, because once you understand this principle, the exhausting pressure lifts and provision begins to move toward you naturally. If you're ready to shift from consumer to steward, write in the comments, "I am a steward of abundance." There's a principle operating in the spiritual realm that most people violate without even realizing it. God cannot bless disorder. It's not that he doesn't want to, it's that divine flow requires alignment, the same way electricity requires a properly wired circuit. Where there is confusion, chaos, contradictory thoughts bouncing around in your mind, heaven cannot pour abundance because there's no clear channel for it to flow through. Think about trying to fill a container that has holes in it. No matter how much you pour in, it just leaks out. Internal disorder creates spiritual leakage that prevents you from holding what heaven is trying to release. As your thoughts, words, and expectations come into alignment with abundance, the flow doesn't just start, it increases. Proportionally, the more aligned you become, the stronger the current. It's like turning up the voltage. When your mind says one thing, your mouth speaks another, and your expectations prepare for something completely different. You create internal static that scrambles the signal. But when all three harmonize, when what you think matches what you speak, and both align with what you genuinely expect, you create a clear pathway for supernatural provision. This alignment isn't something you fake, it's something you cultivate through consistent decisions, through guarding what enters your mind, through being intentional about the narrative you speak over your life. Now here's where it gets even more powerful. What you agree with, you authorize in the spiritual realm. Agreement isn't a passive nod of acknowledgement, it's an active authorization, a spiritual contract that gives permission for specific outcomes to manifest in your life. Heaven responds to agreement, not to emotion. Your feelings fluctuate. Your fears rise and fall. Your moments of desperation come and go, but faith-filled agreement remains steady, and that's what heaven recognizes as valid spiritual currency. When you come into agreement with lack, even unconsciously through your words and expectations, you authorize scarcity to continue operating in your circumstances. When you agree with limitation, you give it permission to stay. But when you deliberately come into agreement with abundance, with the declarations spoken over your life, with the promises written about provision, you authorize heaven to release what's been held in reserve. This agreement isn't wishful thinking. It's a binding spiritual transaction that shifts what's legally accessible to you. Now let me reveal what happens when your internal atmosphere shifts from striving to receiving, because this is where exhaustion ends and ease begins. If you're coming into agreement with these truths, write in the comments, "I agree with heaven's plan." There's a divine principle at work that will completely revolutionize how you pursue financial increase. When you move, heaven moves. Not before you move, but as you move. When you shift your position, increase shifts toward you. When you take faith steps, even small ones, provision accelerates to meet you. The breakthroughs you've been praying for aren't stuck somewhere in the distant future. They're waiting on your alignment with these divine laws. They're positioned just beyond your current perspective, and the moment you step into alignment, they become visible and accessible. This is where most people get it backwards. They're waiting for breakthrough to happen before they change anything. They're waiting to see the money before they shift their mindset. They're waiting for circumstances to improve before they start moving differently. But that's not how the kingdom operates. Movement triggers heaven's response. Your willingness to shift, to step out in faith, to change your approach even when nothing has changed externally. That's what activates the supernatural. Think about it like motion sensor lights. They don't turn on while you're standing still. They respond to movement. Heaven's provision operates similarly. Your faith steps trigger divine response. But here's the paradigm shift that changes everything. You don't chase breakthrough. Read that again because it contradicts everything you've been taught. You don't chase breakthrough. You come into position, and breakthrough finds you. Chasing creates desperation. Chasing signals to the universe that you're operating from lack. Chasing exhausts you and produces minimal results. Positioning, on the other hand, is strategic. It's about aligning yourself with divine flow rather than forcing outcomes through sheer human effort. It's about becoming the person who naturally attracts the opportunities you've been chasing. When a tree needs water, it doesn't chase the rain. It positions its roots deep in the soil, and when rain comes, the tree is perfectly positioned to receive it. You've been running after opportunities, connections, resources, wearing yourself out in the process. What if instead you positioned yourself spiritually, mentally, emotionally, in alignment with abundance and let breakthrough come to you? This isn't passivity. This is wisdom. This is understanding how divine economy flows. The journey shifts from exhausting pursuit to strategic positioning, from anxious chasing to confident expectation. Now let me show you how your capacity must expand to hold what's coming, because heaven is preparing to release more than you've been able to carry before. If you're ready to stop chasing and start positioning, write in the comments, "I'm in position." Something remarkable is happening in your understanding right now. Can you feel it? That fog that's been hanging over your finances, that confusion about which direction to take, that uncertainty about whether you're on the right path, it's lifting. Clarity is entering your mind like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. the divine blueprint for your financial future, the one that's been there all along but obscured by doubt and fear and conflicting voices, is revealing itself with increasing precision. You're beginning to see connections you missed before, recognizing opportunities that were always there but invisible to you, understanding decisions you need to make that suddenly seem obvious. This clarity isn't something you manufactured through positive thinking. This is divine revelation, heaven pulling back the veil so you can see what's been true in the spiritual realm, but hidden from your natural perception. The blueprint has always existed. It was drawn before you were born, customized specifically for your unique journey, embedded with resources and relationships and strategic moments designed to elevate you. But you couldn't access it fully because you were operating from the wrong identity. And this is the transformation that changes everything. Identity precedes increase in the kingdom, always, without exception. Before God releases provision, he establishes who you are, because increase without the right identity becomes a burden rather than a blessing. You've seen it happen. People win the lottery and lose everything within years. People get promotions they can't sustain. People receive opportunities that crush them because their internal identity couldn't support the external elevation. Heaven refuses to let that happen to you. So before the floodgates open, your identity is being recalibrated, reshaped, realigned with truth. You are not a survivor barely making it through life. You are not a victim of circumstances beyond your control. You are not limited by your background, your education, your past mistakes, or your current bank balance. Those narratives you've been carrying, those labels you've accepted, those limitations you've internalized, they're dissolving right now as the truth of your identity emerges. You are a steward of abundance, designed to manage and multiply resources, created to walk in overflow so you can impact others, positioned to influence systems and change lives through the wealth entrusted to you. This identity shift isn't cosmetic, it's foundational. It changes how you make decisions, how you respond to pressure, how you see opportunities, how you handle setbacks. Now let me show you why the enemy has fought so hard to keep you from this awakening, because once you fully grasp who you are, his tactics lose their power. If this identity is resonating with your spirit, write in the comments, "I am a steward." Let me tell you why the enemy has been so relentless in attacking your finances. It's not actually about the money, it's about what you'll do when you realize the authority you carry. You are not begging heaven for resources like some desperate beggar hoping for scraps. You are authorized, legally, spiritually, divinely authorized to manage, multiply, and govern resources. That word govern is critical. It means you have jurisdiction, you have decision-making power, you have the right to legislate over your financial atmosphere. The enemy fears that awakening more than anything else, because once you understand, you're not asking for permission but exercising authority, everything changes. He's kept you in a mindset of dependency, always waiting for someone to give you a chance, always hoping circumstances will finally favor you, always feeling like you're at the mercy of forces beyond your control. But that's not your real position. You carry kingdom authority. That means when you decree something over your finances with genuine faith, heaven responds not because you begged well enough, but because you spoke with the authority invested in you. When you declare increase, you're not hoping it might happen. You're legislating it into manifestation. This is the identity shift that terrifies the demonic realm. A person who knows they're a victim can be controlled. A person who knows they're an ambassador cannot. And that's exactly what you are, an ambassador representing a kingdom that lacks nothing. You weren't created to just survive the economy. You were designed to influence it. You're not an accident of biology or circumstance. You're a deliberate, strategic placement, positioned exactly where you are for kingdom impact. Every skill you possess, every passion that drives you, Every connection in your network, every idea that excites you, these aren't random. They're divine equipment for the assignment you carry. Ambassadors don't beg. They negotiate from a position of strength. Ambassadors don't panic when circumstances shift. They remain steady because they represent something bigger than themselves. Ambassadors don't operate from scarcity. They operate from the abundance of the kingdom that sent them. You've been trusted with divine resources, not just money, but influence, wisdom, creativity, strategic insight, all of it designed to create transformation in your sphere of influence. The wealth coming to you isn't just for comfort. It's for impact, for legacy, for changing the trajectory of others who are watching your journey. Now let me reveal what happens when you shift from striving to flowing, because this is where pressure releases and provision begins moving toward you naturally. If you're accepting this ambassador identity, write in the comments, "I represent the kingdom." Your true identity is awakening right now in this very moment, and you can feel it happening whether you can articulate it or not. Those lies that have whispered in your ear for years, "You're not good enough. Success is for other people. You'll always struggle financially." They're breaking apart like glass under pressure. Every internal ceiling you've bumped against, every invisible limitation that felt like a solid wall, is collapsing. The mindset of lack that's been your constant companion, that voice that always prepares you for disappointment, that expectation of shortage, it's dissolving under the weight of truth that's flooding your consciousness. This awakening isn't gradual. It's instantaneous, even though you may have been journeying toward it for years. It's like the moment a butterfly emerges from a cocoon. The transformation happens slowly in the hidden place, but the emergence is sudden and irreversible. You cannot unknow what you're learning right now. You cannot return to the old identity once you've tasted the reality of who you actually are. The veil has been pulled back, and what you're seeing changes everything about how you'll move forward. Here's the shift that makes all the difference. Increase is not just something God gives you like a parent handing money to a child. Increase is something God trusts you to steward. That distinction is massive. A gift requires nothing from you except receiving it. Stewardship requires wisdom, responsibility, multiplication, strategic thinking. God isn't looking for people to simply consume his blessings. He's looking for people he can trust to manage them, grow them, and use them for kingdom purposes. That's why he's been developing you through seasons that felt like delay. He was building the steward before releasing the supply. When your identity finally aligns with abundance, when you see yourself as someone capable of handling wealth rather than someone who barely scrapes by, heaven releases what was previously withheld. Not because God was holding out on you, but because the vessel wasn't ready to hold it without cracking under the pressure. You've watched people receive windfalls they couldn't maintain. You've seen others get opportunities they couldn't sustain. That won't be your story, because the internal transformation is happening first. Your capacity is expanding. Your mindset is maturing. Your stewardship abilities are sharpening. Now, let me reveal how divine flow replaces the exhausting cycle of human striving, because this is where you transition from forcing outcomes to attracting them naturally. If you're stepping into this stewardship identity, write in the comments, "I'm ready to steward increase." The kingdom never designed you to live under financial strain. Let that sink in for a moment. That constant pressure, that knot in your stomach when bills are due. That exhausting cycle of working harder but never getting ahead. None of that was heaven's intention for your life. Strain is the signature of human effort operating without divine alignment. It's what happens when you're pushing doors that were meant to open naturally, when you're forcing outcomes instead of flowing with heaven's timing, when you're carrying weight you were never meant to bear alone. Flow, on the other hand, is the signature of divine alignment. It's what happens when your steps sync with heaven's rhythm, when opportunities come to you, instead of you chasing them down, when provision arrives precisely when you need it without the panic and scramble. Operating in flow doesn't mean you're passive or lazy. It means you're attracting what heaven already prepared, rather than manufacturing results through sheer willpower. Think about a river. It doesn't strain to reach the ocean. It flows naturally, following the path of least resistance, and inevitably arrives at its destination. That's how your financial journey is meant to function. God is calling you out of striving right now, out of that frantic energy that keeps you up at night calculating how to make ends meet, out of that anxious hustle that exhausts you but produces minimal results, out of that mental loop that constantly problem solves from a place of fear. He's inviting you into his flow, where what you've been chasing through anxiety, he releases through alignment. The transformation from striving to flowing is immediate once you make the internal shift. Your circumstances might not change overnight, but your experience of those circumstances transforms completely. Stress gives way to peaceful progress. The tight grip you've had on control loosens as you realize you were never meant to orchestrate everything yourself. The burden lifts as you understand that heaven is working behind the scenes in ways you cannot see. This isn't about becoming careless or irresponsible with your finances. This is about recognizing that your responsibility is alignment, not control. Your job is to position yourself correctly, and heaven's job is to release provision. When you try to do both, you create strain. When you focus on your part and trust God with his, you enter flow. Now let me show you exactly what this flow looks like in practical terms, because understanding the mechanics of divine ease will help you recognize when you're operating in it versus when you've slipped back into striving. If you're ready to release the strain, write in the comments, "I choose flow over striving." Here's something that will completely reframe how you view your financial stress, that constant anxiety you've been carrying, that pressure that keeps you awake at 3 in the morning, that weight on your chest when you think about your bank account. It was never a sign that you're being responsible. It was a sign that you're misaligned. Somewhere along the way, you bought into the lie that stress equals diligence, that worry proves you care, that pressure is just part of being a responsible adult. But divine flow feels nothing like that. Divine flow feels like clarity when confusion used to reign. It feels like calm confidence replacing anxious calculation. It feels like your steps becoming lighter, your breathing becoming easier, your mind becoming quieter. Opportunities start appearing clearer, almost obvious, when before they were hidden in a fog of overthinking. Provision begins moving toward you instead of you desperately running after it. You make decisions faster because you're not paralyzed by fear. You sleep better because you're not carrying tomorrow's problems into tonight's rest. This isn't irresponsibility. This is alignment. This is what it feels like when you're operating in sync with heaven's rhythm rather than fighting against it. Every cycle of overthinking is breaking right now. That mental loop that replays worst-case scenarios on repeat, that voice that questions every decision, that anxiety that creates problems. Before they even exist, it's losing its grip on you. Every cycle of pressure that convinced you everything depends on your effort alone is shattering. Every cycle of fear that made you feel like you're always one mistake away from disaster is being dismantled. These cycles have been running in the background of your life for so long they felt normal, but they were never meant to be your operating system. When you stop fighting in the flesh, when you cease striving in your own strength, when you release the death grip you've had on trying to control every outcome, that's when the Spirit accelerates what belongs to you. It's counterintuitive, I know. Everything in you wants to push harder, work longer, control more. But that's the old paradigm. The new paradigm says when you stop forcing, God starts unfolding. When you step back, heaven steps forward. When you loosen your grip, provision flows through your open hands instead of being blocked by your clenched fists. Now let me show you how. Prophetic doors open when you align with divine timing, because what's about to manifest has been waiting for this exact moment when you're finally ready to receive it. If you're breaking free from these cycles, write in the comments, "Pressure is breaking." There are moments in time that operate differently than normal chronological progression. The ancient Greeks distinguished between chronos, regular tick-tock time, and kairos, which represents an opportune moment, a strategic window when everything aligns perfectly for breakthrough. Heaven operates in kairos moments, divine appointments where what was impossible yesterday becomes effortless today, where doors that were locked for years suddenly swing open without you even touching them, where opportunities that should take decades to develop present themselves in a single conversation. You are standing inside such a moment right now, not tomorrow. Not next week when you feel more prepared. Not next month when circumstances look better. Right now, in this exact window of time, heaven has opened a kairos moment specifically for you. This is why your spirit was pulled to this message, why you couldn't look away, why something inside you is responding with recognition even if your mind doesn't fully understand yet. Your spirit knows what your intellect is still catching up to. This is your moment, your window, your divine appointment with financial transformation. God is opening doors that no human being can shut. Not your boss, not the economy, not your credit score, not the naysayers who doubted you. None of them have the authority to close what heaven is opening. These aren't doors you have to bang on or beg to enter. These are doors responding to your alignment, recognizing the shift in your identity, opening because heaven has issued the command. He's releasing opportunities that human effort could never produce, connections your networking could never create, ideas your brainstorming could never generate, resources your salary could never provide. Prophetic doors are different from natural doors. Natural doors open through credentials, through who you know, through years of proving yourself, through climbing ladders and paying dues. Prophetic doors open through discernment and alignment, not through strength or striving. You can't force your way through a prophetic door. It won't budge. But when you align with divine timing, when your spirit discerns the moment correctly, when you step forward in faith rather than fear, these doors recognize you and respond. They were custom designed for you, coded to your spiritual DNA, waiting for this exact intersection of your readiness and heaven's timing. Now let me reveal what happens when divine timing meets divine favor, because this combination creates momentum that's impossible to stop once it begins moving. If you're sensing these doors opening, write in the comments, "My doors are opening. The timing has changed. Can you feel it?" Something fundamental has shifted in the spiritual atmosphere around your life. The grace that governs your season has moved into a new configuration. You are stepping into rooms you didn't qualify for on paper, being remembered in circles that previously excluded you, chosen for opportunities that were once completely inaccessible to someone with your background or credentials. This isn't favoritism. This is divine favor operating outside of natural merit systems. When heaven decides your time has come, all the usual requirements get bypassed. People who forgot you exist are suddenly remembering your name. Conversations are happening about you in spaces you've never entered. Decisions are being made in your favor by individuals who don't even know you yet. This is what happens when divine timing intersects with your obedience to align. The doors that were sealed during your preparation season are now opening during your manifestation season. What couldn't happen before is happening now, not because you suddenly became more qualified, but because the timing shifted and grace met the moment. But here's what we need to address honestly, because ignoring it would be a disservice to your breakthrough. Financial trauma is real. Those moments when you felt completely abandoned by provision, when you prayed and nothing came, when you believed for a miracle and watched it evaporate, they left marks on your soul. Seasons of closed doors, repeated disappointments, unexpected losses, betrayals. Involving money, these experiences create spiritual bruises that don't show up on the surface but affect everything underneath. These bruises quietly sabotage your ability to receive even when breakthrough arrives, because part of you is bracing for loss, preparing for disappointment, expecting the other shoe to drop. You've been hurt financially so many times that your internal defense system automatically rejects abundance before it can hurt you again. It's like flinching before you're hit, a protective response from past pain. But this trauma is being healed right now as you're reading these words. The places where disappointment took root are being excavated. The wounds where fear was planted are being cleansed. The memories that conditioned you to expect loss are being replaced with truth. Now let me show you how your internal world must be restored before your external circumstances can fully transform, because this healing is the foundation for sustained abundance. If you're ready for this healing, write in the comments, "I receive healing." If the heart is wounded, the flow of increase becomes restricted no matter how much you pray or declare or believe. It's like trying to pour water through a kinked hose. The source might be unlimited, but the channel is obstructed. Your heart is the channel through which financial blessing flows into your life. And if that channel is scarred, constricted, guarded by walls built from past pain, the flow diminishes to a trickle, even when heaven is pouring out abundance. Today, healing is being decreed over every internal scar you've carried. Every memory of being overlooked for the promotion is losing its power. Every disappointment when the opportunity fell through is being neutralized. Every moment you felt humiliated by your financial situation is being redeemed. Every voice of unworthiness, the one that whispers you don't deserve success, that you're not smart enough, not connected enough, not worthy enough, is being silenced right now. These voices weren't originally yours. They were planted through experiences, through criticism, through comparison, through failure, but they took root and grew until they sounded like your own thoughts. They're being uprooted from the soil of your consciousness, extracted completely so they can't regenerate. Every memory of lack that conditioned you to expect shortage, that trained you to prepare for disappointment, that taught you abundance is for others but not for you. These memories are being overwritten with truth, but healing the heart is only part of the transformation. Your mindset is the gatekeeper of every financial outcome in your life. Think about an actual gatekeeper standing at the entrance of a city. Their job is to determine what gets in and what stays out. Your mindset functions exactly the same way. Heaven can release blessings, opportunities can knock, favor can arrive at your doorstep, but if your mindset, the gatekeeper, doesn't recognize, it doesn't believe you deserve it, doesn't think you can handle it, it turns the blessing away before you ever consciously realize it was there. Your mindset determines not just what you receive, but how much you can hold without panicking, how effectively you can manage it without sabotaging it, and how strategically you can multiply it for kingdom purposes. A scarcity mindset repels abundance even when you're praying for it. An abundance mindset attracts it even when you're not actively pursuing it. This is why two people can be in the same situation with the same opportunities, and one thrives while the other barely survives. The difference isn't the external circumstances. It's the internal gatekeeper, making moment-by-moment decisions about what to allow in and what to keep out. Now let me show you how to shift this gatekeeper from defense mode to reception mode, because that shift changes everything about what you're able to access. If you're ready for your mindset to shift, write in the comments, "My mindset is shifting." You cannot walk in overflow while thinking like someone who's barely surviving. It's spiritually impossible. The two realities cannot coexist in the same space. Your external circumstances will always eventually mirror your internal narrative. If your thoughts are saturated with scarcity, your life will produce scarcity even when abundance tries to break through. If your mindset is trapped in survival mode, constantly calculating how to just make it through another month, you'll never access the overflow that's already assigned to you. The shift has to happen internally before it can manifest externally. Your mindset is shifting right now from fear to faith. Fear says, what if I lose everything? Faith says, what if everything I've been believing for finally manifests? From survival to stewardship, survival thinks only about today's needs, but stewardship thinks about generational impact, about legacy, about managing resources in a way that creates lasting transformation. From limitation to expansion, limitation sees only what's currently visible and declares, this is all there is. Expansion sees beyond current circumstances and declares, there's more available than I can currently perceive. From barely enough to exceedingly above, barely enough keeps you stuck in a perpetual state of anxiety, always wondering if you'll make it. Exceedingly above positions you in overflow, where you have more than you need so you can be a conduit of blessing to others. This transformation isn't something you manufacture through positive thinking or affirmations you don't believe. This is a supernatural recalibration happening in your spirit right now, rewiring the neural pathways that have kept you bound to scarcity thinking, breaking the mental patterns that limited what you could receive, expanding your capacity to hold what heaven is about to release. The old operating system that ran your financial decisions is being upgraded to one that operates on kingdom principles rather than worldly economics. With apostolic authority, I speak this over your life right now. The Father is bringing your spirit into full harmony with His abundance. Not partial alignment, not occasional synchronization, but full harmony where your frequency matches heaven's frequency regarding your finances. He is legislating every financial blessing that has your name on it, decreeing it into manifestation with divine authority that cannot be contested. He is dismantling every barrier that stood between you and your breakthrough, removing every obstacle that slowed your progress, breaking every chain that kept you bound to lack. Now let me show you what happens when heaven's release meets your readiness, because the convergence of these two elements creates an unstoppable momentum that transforms everything. If you're receiving this declaration, write in the comments, I receive this with apostolic authority. You cannot walk in overflow while thinking like someone who's barely surviving. It's spiritually impossible. The two realities cannot coexist in the same space. Your external circumstances will always eventually mirror your internal narrative. If your thoughts are saturated with scarcity, your life will produce scarcity even when abundance tries to break through. If your mindset is trapped in survival mode, constantly calculating how to just make it through another month, you'll never access the overflow that's already assigned to you. The shift has to happen internally before it can manifest externally. Your mindset is shifting right now from fear to faith. Fear says, what if I lose everything? Faith says, what if everything I've been believing for finally manifests? From survival to stewardship, survival thinks only about today's needs, but stewardship thinks about generational impact, about legacy, about managing resources in a way that creates lasting transformation. From limitation to expansion. Limitation sees only what's currently visible and declares this is all there is. Expansion sees beyond current circumstances and declares there's more available than I can currently perceive. From barely enough to exceedingly above, Barely enough keeps you stuck in a perpetual state of anxiety, always wondering if you'll make it. Exceedingly above positions you in overflow, where you have more than you need so you can be a conduit of blessing to others. This transformation isn't something you manufacture through positive thinking or affirmations you don't believe. This is a supernatural recalibration happening in your spirit right now, rewiring the neural pathways that have kept you bound to scarcity thinking, breaking the mental patterns that limited what you could receive, expanding your capacity to hold what heaven is about to release. The old operating system that ran your financial decisions is being upgraded to one that operates on kingdom principles rather than worldly economics. With apostolic authority, I speak this over your life right now. The Father is bringing your spirit into full harmony with His abundance. Not partial alignment, not occasional synchronization, but full harmony, where your frequency matches heaven's frequency regarding your finances. He is legislating every financial blessing that has your name on it, decreeing it into manifestation with divine authority that cannot be contested. He is dismantling every barrier that stood between you and your breakthrough, removing every obstacle that slowed your progress, breaking every chain that kept you bound to lack. Now let me show you what happens when heaven's release meets your readiness, because the convergence of these two elements creates an unstoppable momentum that transforms everything. If you're receiving this declaration, write in the comments, "I receive this with apostolic authority."